B-roll. One of the most important parts to any YouTube video. You see it everywhere. However, not many people know how to do it that well or have the right gear to do it. And it's a question that I get asked an awful lot. How do I film good B-roll? What are some tips and tricks that I know as a YouTuber and a filmmaker that can help get better B-roll footage? So I thought today I'd jump in and talk about some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years I've been doing this for and share them with you and show you guys how to do it. First of all, for those that are clueless on what exactly B-roll is, it's footage that cuts away from your primary content, otherwise known as your A-roll, to show or suggest or highlight particular things you're talking about. You can use it in various different ways. For example, you see it a lot in product videos where they are demonstrating or showing off various shots of the product with their A-roll underneath it as a voiceover. I've used it in my videos to show off different things like the DaVinci Resolve speed editor, as well as shots of my desktop when I'm showing you guys how to do a tutorial in a particular kind of software. So we're going to go over a couple of different ways that you can improve the B-roll in your videos, from filming and what kind of gear you need to editing and making that B-roll look beautiful. First things first though, let's talk about gear. I'm going to go over a couple of different gear options, starting with the most handy of them all, handheld. Yeah, that was bad. We're not going to talk about it. In one of my earlier videos, it was the 50 tips video, I actually gave some advice for shooting B-roll if you don't have any gear. I'll leave a link to that video up here and down below. And if you don't mind, I'm probably going to repeat those tips here. But one of the best ways to get smoother B-roll footage is by using a camera strap. But putting the camera strap on your camera and then putting it around your neck and then pulling against the camera strap, you actually create a tension line between your camera and the strap and create another point of contact with the camera. This means you can pan and move the camera with much smoother movements compared to if you're holding the camera normally. One other tip I mentioned in that video is how you can get nice smooth dolly movements with using just your hand. If you place your hand underneath the camera and use your knuckles to trace along the surface your camera is running against, you can create some really nice smooth movements. And if the surface you are running your hand over is a little bit rough and you don't want to risk hurting your hand or hurting the camera, just put something underneath the camera and use that to slide along the surface. And as an extra tip, I highly recommend shooting in higher frame rates, things like 60 FPS or even 120 frames per second to get some nice smooth movement. Shooting in those higher frame rates really takes out a lot of the bumps and a lot of the jitters you will have from handheld footage because you're filming a lot slower. And these are pretty simple things you can do to get smoother B-roll footage. But let's move on to a simple, small upgrade that you can do to really improve the quality of that footage. And the first gear upgrade I recommend getting is, of course, a tripod. Tripods are really great to create pans and tilts to create movement within your shot. But you can also use a tripod to lock off your camera to create some nice, smooth focus pulls where you change the focus of the camera from one object to another. And these are pretty standard across most YouTube videos. However, if we use the tripod in a slightly different way, we can really change up and create some nice dynamic shots. By just collapsing the tripod legs to create kind of one super leg, I guess you could call it, it creates these really creative orbiting style shots that you could use in different circumstances. Say for example, like a fast paced montage, you could use this kind of action very well. You can obviously do this with a tripod by collapsing it down, as I've said, or you can use what's called a monopod. And what a monopod is essentially a one leg version of a tripod, because tri means three and mono means one. Just in case for those that weren't aware what they meant. This piece of gear is super handy. You see this a lot with wedding photographers or wedding videographers where they need to get stable shots, but they also need to keep mobile to keep up with the action. And you can get a cheap monopod off Amazon. I've left a link to one of them down below if you guys want to check that out and pick one up for yourself. If not, just collapsing your tripod into a single-legged tripod will do the job. The third piece of gear is one of the ones that takes your videos from around about here to up here, and it's something we use an awful lot on the Alpha Gaming channel, and that is a motorized camera slider. They are done on what's called a track and dolly system, where the camera moves along on a motorized slider across a series of rails. And different sliders have different functionalities. The one that I have is pretty inexpensive in comparison to some of the more expensive ones on the market. It allows me to create some nice smooth shots like this, and by turning these little locks on the side, I can actually create almost a turn turning point for the camera so that my camera will orbit around a particular object during the length of the track. I'll left a link to the one that I used down below in the description as well. If you guys want to up your game in B-roll, I think it's a worthy investment for how much you're paying for it and for the kind of stuff it gives you. But I do just want to say that you probably won't be using it all the time, and a handheld shot might actually perform better for you. So judge your channel and the kind of content you make. If you feel like you need it, there's options out there for you. So with all those different options done, how can we really take advantage of this footage in the edit? What kind of things can we do to really spice up this footage? The first one ties back to the advice I gave earlier, which is filming in a higher frame rate. Filming in a higher frame rate like 60 FPS or 120 FPS allows you to slow that footage down in your editing application. So you can have nice, smooth, slow shots that you can do some really creative things to later on. This does only work if you are editing in a timeline that is lower than your original FPS. So if you shot in a 60 frames per second, edit it in a 30 frames per second timeline so you can half speed the footage. Hope that makes sense. You can then slow it down and do some really creative things with it, like my next tip, speed ramps. Speed ramps are a great way to add momentum to a shot, and what essentially is, you're going from a really fast speed to a slow speed, and the bit in the middle is either ramping up or ramping down, and you can see it either starts off fast and slows down to a gradual halt, or it slows down and speeds up to a new point in the timeline. Say the slider shot, for example, I can create a speed ramp between 2 points in the clip. Each side is slow, but the bit in the middle I can make really fast, and what that will do is when we play it back, it will speed up to that ramp and then slow down again. This technique is a fantastic way to create really fast-paced montages, because you can use fast-paced cuts like this to add momentum to the shot, or use it to transition between one shot and another. One last little thing that I like to do when it comes to B-roll footage is I like to add finishing touches where I can. Things like light leaks or lens flares really increase that production value by adding texture to the shot. Having a small lens flare slowly creeping into the frame really adds that cinematic touch that you want to your footage. Now, not all of your footage is going to look like this, nor should it. You should use these techniques and these little things sparingly. Use them little and often in your footage just to add that little bit extra production value, like adding a little lens flare to a hero shot of the product you're going to review. Doesn't hurt at all. Just don't use it all the time. B-roll should feel like it's a part of the video, like it's an extension of the story that you're telling, not just something to replace the poorly shot footage that you've got underneath it. It's there to add that professional detail that will take your videos to the next level. So I hope this video was helpful to you out there that's looking to improve the footage you use in your videos. If you did find this video helpful, then be sure to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to have any questions and a one-on-one discussion with me, then feel free to jump into my Twitch chat. I'm live every single Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday. The link for that is down below. And with all that said and done, guys, hope you guys are safe and well. Until next time, take care.